Welcome to Tech Notice, my friends. This over here is Vitamin C PC. I know, a bit of a cheesy name for most people, but let me know if you like it. If you have any other comments or names for this, let me know in the comment section below. But it's time to review this PC and give it a good old Tech Notice review. And you're thinking, wait a second, didn't you chose all the parts and build it yourself and configure it yourself? What, you're reviewing your own stuff? Well, yeah, because I think online you don't see that happen often, where people actually build it and be objective about it and say, okay, these were the good sides. If you want to do it, keep an eye out for that. This is exactly why I'm making this video. So if you want to build the same PC, or maybe are wondering about certain parts and the compatibility and things like that, then there's quite a bit of information in this video. We're going to talk about the good and bad sides. Let's go. If you're looking for a cheap Windows 10 OEM license, then look no further. BobKeys.com is a website where you can purchase all sorts of keys and licenses for very affordable prices. With a Tech Notice discount, you'll be able to get the Windows 10 Pro license 25% off. To purchase the license, click on the link in the description or search for Windows 10 license on BobKeys.com. Then add the product to the cart and press proceed checkout. Remember to add the 25% discount code and complete the order. Once you have the license key, click here, paste in the license, and you're all done. Check out bobkeys.com in the description below. So usually when I'm starting a build or putting a build together, there's usually one or two components that get me excited, and then I'll start to build the rest of the system around it. Whether it's a color theme or maybe a certain part, that's what usually sparks the creation in my mind to do it. So for this theme, we wanted something that is gray and lime green, because the person who actually is going to get this PC has their whole office set up lime green and gray, so they wanted something that kind of fits in their office and things like that. So I knew that, okay, I'm gonna get a bit of a paint job for the PC, because I want the PC to also look within the color theme when it's off, not just to give the accent on RGB, but when it's off as well. But I wasn't sure which case I'm gonna go for, and it wasn't very easy to find a gray case. Most of the cases are black and white, but not gray. So I really wanted something that would look like matte gray, and I thought maybe I'm gonna do a color, a paint job on this. But if you don't have a really controlled environment, I don't have really that controlled environment, so I can't really paint these big pieces. I can paint little accents and things because that's not too hard, but in order to paint big panels, for example, it's really hard to do that. But finally I found this case, and this case is from Fantex. It's Enthoo Evolve X, and there's a few different variation of colors out there. And first of all, this was where we had a little bit of an issue, because it seems like the UK market and then the rest of the world's market have actually named the same model differently. The color is named differently. In the UK, some of the shops call this color gunmetal gray, and then some of the shops also call it anthracite gray. They're exactly the same color, so there was a bit of a confusion over there, but we ended up with this color. So it's kind of very similar to the MacBook, as you can see. It's very similar color. Maybe this is a little bit tiny more magenta tint on that gray than this space gray on the MacBook, but very similar for this type of feel. And after I got this case, I was super impressed, because this is the most premium case I have ever built in. It's got a thick metal panels, and it's super heavy because it's got two tempered glass on both sides of the PC, and they're both sealed off very premium quality. All of these parts or the panels are really nicely built. It looks very good. It just feels very, very premium. Then we went about creating a paint job for this build, just to add a little bit more lime green. It was quite hard to find the paint in the end, but I found it eventually here from the UK, from B&Q actually. But there's few things that have been painted lime green as well. So as you can see, this top little panel notch over here that hides the top panel or front panel AIO, this has been painted lime green. Then on the top of the case, you have these two little grills on this side and that side where you exhaust the hot air out from the top. These have been painted lime green. We have the AIO brackets inside the PC on the motherboard. They have been painted lime green, and we have these three PCIe covers of the vertical GPU brackets painted lime green as well. And I think it just adds like a nice little touch that even if you've seen the case before, this is gonna look very, very nice. And then on top of it, we added a bit of RGB and color inside as well. The included fans that come in the case are a little bit odd because they're like white from the inside and then black around it, which I don't think fits in the case at all. So that's really odd. So we took the included fans out and added deep cool RGB fans. By the way, any of the parts that I'm talking about, you can find links in the description below if you want to purchase them. They're very, very affordable RGB fans, and they can connect to your motherboard. And they already come with like an RGB hub as well, so you can connect them together and the fans together. So super, super awesome, very affordable. So there was like £34 for a pack of 2, which is very cheap. You know, the coarser ones, some of them cost even double the price, so that's awesome. And they just add like a green glow effect. And I wanted to add the same deep cool kind of brand fans because the AIO already had 320mm the same model fans, so we just added 140mm ones over on here. We have 4, so 1 in the back and then 3 in the front, which is awesome. By the way, this case does support 3 140mm fans on the front. Then we have a little bit of RGB on the AIO in the middle on the circle over there. Then our RGB RAM sticks from HyperX have also RGB on them. And then our MSI, you know, GPU also have a little bit of RGB in here. So all together, this just like makes it all inside a glow, a bit of green, which is fantastic. Did I mention that the case also has 2 very, very nice, you know, tasty RGB accents? One is on the side over here that adds like a little RGB strip light on the side, which I like very much. I really, really like that. And then you have like front panel on the behind of the front panel on here, you can see there's green. But like in terms of the color, the most impressive thing for me is these PSU extension cables. They are the nicest PSU extension cables I have ever seen. Just such a nice fit into this build. The colors fit perfectly, and these are from my buddy from RorzcustomPC. If you haven't, you know, heard about him, check out the website below. He makes PSU extension cables and custom wraps for cases. So if you've seen my Peter McKinnon build, we also got like the wrap of the owl wrap from there, but now he does PSU extension cables as well. And they are super high quality and super, super nice. Like they're completely custom made for this PC. Even like the orientation of the cables of the GPU and the CPU were custom made so that they're the right way and don't have to be twisted and bent the right way. Super nice. So we have a bit of a lime green accent and then a bit of dark green and dark gray and then light gray accent on the PSU extension cables. So I'm like, these are just super, super nice. Okay, so thanks Rory for making these. So that's like the design of the case, and I super, super like it. Super like it, is that even a word? I just really think this looks like one of the nicest PCs I have built. Let's talk about some other features that this PC has. First of all, the motherboard has a debug LED on, so it either is going to give you like an error code, or if the PC is actually working and on, like at the moment, the actual number over there is CPU temperatures. I like that the case had lots of room inside and how we attached the top bracket and the AIO installation and everything. It was super easy because there was lots of room. Talking about the build, I also enjoyed the cable management and the covering. If you saw my build of this when we did the live stream of building this, then after the live stream I said I'm not gonna do the cable management live because there was just like, I don't know, tons of cables going through there, because each fan has fan cable and RGB cable going in the back over there, plus all the rest of the stuff. There was like so many cables, and I thought it's gonna take me like a whole day to sort that out. But because it has 2 panels on the other side that literally cover like all of the cable management, it was quite easy to just like pull all those cables together, kind of zip tie them or use the straps included in the case in there, and then just close the panels, and then all of suddenly like the back panel is super clean. You can see through the glass, it's clean. I like it a lot. I also like that the back panel is actually glass. So now you actually see most of the CPU PSU extension cable. So basically, usually it hides like most of it because it's like a top corner over there and you don't see like a lot of the design of it, but now on the back of it you see the rest of the cable come down. I also want to say like the orientation of the AIO, I think this is like the best way of configuring this, and this also gives you a bit of a positive pressure inside the case because we have more intake than outtake basically. Like we have 340mm intakes and then 140mm outtake. We have another 320mm outtakes, but they don't push out air as much as pushing in because they have, you know, a blockage of the radiator there as well, so they have to blow the air through the radiator. But I think it's also a good idea to put the radiator on top, not just because of the pump, you know, lifetime, and not to have the pump above the radiator or things like that, but because naturally hot air rises, so all the hot air that is actually produced because of the radiator naturally just goes high and just like comes out from the top. So it's like the best cooling performance basically. If it was from the front, you're gonna have to push the cool air in and then the hot air comes inside the case and then comes out. Whereas now we're just literally making the hot, you know, air or water or the CPU temperature, you know, warmth come to the top and then it just exhausts up. In terms of the noise performance, I am quite happy about that as well. Like the PC is super quiet. It doesn't make a lot of noise and it never almost ramps up full speed unless you do some kind of like stress test like firmware. But in terms of real world performance, whether it's video exporting or doing something like that, that actually requires quite a bit of CPU like utilization, it never really ramps up. There's only a slight pump noise that you can hear. It sounds almost like a little bit of a disc, you know, like a hard drive disc, but very quiet and a little bit higher pitch than hard drive disc. But there is a little bit of noise that the pump makes. Now, in terms of performance of this PC, I'm not going to spend too long on this because there's another whole video about this PC's performance and how good is it in creative applications and what it can do good and well. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. But I'm just very happy with it. Like hands-on performance, video editing and photo editing or anything you do with it, the PC is snappy, runs very smooth. It's just fast. It is just awesome. Like I can't really explain it. It just works really, really well. If you're a creator who does like everything or needs kind of a PC that does everything, this is like the jack of all trades for you and it can do everything. Now let's talk about some of the connectivity. So if you want a lot of connectivity or some of the ports, here's what you get. On the front panel, we have USB ports. There is two USB 3.0 ports and these are type A, 5 gigabits per second, and one USB-C port, which is 10 gigabits port. On the back, we have another 4 USB-A ports, which also include BIOS flashback or update. So if you need to update the BIOS by USB stick, you can do that. We have 3 USB-A ports, which are 10 gigabit speed, and one USB-C port, which is also 10 gigabit speed. We have an HDMI port on the motherboard, and there is also old-fashioned keyboard port if you need one of those for your keyboard or mouse. There is 2.5 gigabit LAN port, so if you do want to connect to a NAS, you actually have 2.5 gigs there. And we have built-in Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. And of course, you have all your audio inputs and outputs, including optical out if you need it, all that sort of jazz. So all of those included there. Now let's talk about some of the downsides and things that I'm not so happy about, and some of the things that I'm like, okay, this didn't go that well, or I wish this was a little bit different. First of all, the case is very high quality, but there is one thing that I'm a little bit worried about, that it's gonna snap off. In the backside, there is the 2 panels that cover the whole cable management, but those doors or panels are actually held in with some plastic clips that seem very rigid and very fragile. So I'm a little bit worried that they might snap off sometimes because you have to bend them quite a bit in order to get those panels off. So I've been very, very careful with them. So I don't have like 100% confidence in the long lastingness of those. Next of all, I don't get this like at all. I've seen more and more cases do that, but this PSU hole, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think people or like manufacturers really should stop doing that, because like showcasing off or showing off your power supply is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because it just makes the design of this case like a random hole in there. Like, let's just cover it up. Like, no one needs to know that I'm running a Corsair RM850 in there. Even if your PSU is RGB, why would you want to show that off? I just don't get it. It's absolutely ridiculous. I wish this was just a straight panel over there. I think it would look much better and much more minimalistic. Let me know if you agree. Another thing I don't like about this PC is the AIO. So first of all, I have used a few deep cool like AIOs before, and they've been very, very nice. And previously I've used the EX versions, which actually have a little RGB ring around it as well. And basically the top cover can be taken off and the inside logo can be oriented. And the tubes of, you know, the AIO can come bottom top on that side, no problem at all. This version, or the RGB version of this cooler, actually needs to be fitted only this way, that the tubes are towards the RAM or RAM side, because the logo inside there can't be turned different way. But I think it's just like something to look out for if you want to have like tubes up, which I would actually prefer, or tubes on the other side. You can't really have that because the logo is going to look that way. So maybe worth going into the Castle EX version and getting some RGB fans in there, just if you need to have the orientation some other way. The biggest issue I've had on this PC is the power supply we're gonna go for at first. We were gonna go with the Gigabyte P850GM power supply. So it's an 850 watt power supply. It has modular power cables, and it was very, very affordable. So I thought, what can you lose? You know, 80 plus gold as well, so it's awesome. But that power supply has like one major thing wrong with it. Basically, that power supply has 3 PCIe power cable ports on the power supply, but it only comes with 2 cables. And the third cable you have to purchase separately. Right now, it wasn't available, or Gigabyte said you can't really get it, so sorry. So I couldn't find it even on sale online, so I'm not even sure if you can buy it separately. Here's why this is an issue. This GPU over here needs 2 6+2 PCIe power pin cables over there, and our motherboard also needs a supplementary PCIe power, but that is only 6-pin PCIe power. Okay, so you think, okay, yeah, 3 cables, there we go. Or maybe you have a question, why wouldn't you just use one of the cables that splits into 2, you know, PCIe 8-pin powers, and then just use one of the cables to pull, you know, them 2 powers over here? Here's the thing, one PCIe power cable, or 8+2 power cable, is rated at 150 watts, and the motherboard also gives 75 watts through the PCIe slot. So altogether, one cable and the motherboard can give you 225 watts of power. But this GPU, from the manufacturer, the BIOS is actually at 240 watts. And I have seen this GPU pull more than 240 watts of power. This is where this becomes an issue, because I know that this doesn't happen all the time, but you have a peak of sometimes more than 240 watts. But as you can see, the one cable plus PCIe cable only takes us to 225 watts, but our GPU is over that rated power. So in my mind, I want 2 separate cables to go here. So I know that I can already, you know, give it 300 watts of power plus another 75 watts of power through the PCIe port. But in our case, we just couldn't do it because of the stupid power supply issue that it only comes with 2 cables, even there's 3 ports. It's just ridiculous. Just give us 3 cables when there's 3 ports. So now let's talk about the supplementary power that your motherboard needs. The motherboard needs extra, you know, 6-pin of PCIe power just to power like all the M.2 drives that are inside the motherboard, because it has 4 slots, which is amazing. But because of this case and the motherboard, adding that in there is a proper nightmare, because the actual 6-pin power cable does not fit through those ports or those gaps that are on the bottom of the motherboard over there in the case, which means that if you want to add that after you have installed your motherboard inside the case, you're gonna have to unscrew your motherboard, lift the motherboard up a little bit, take the cable out, put the motherboard back, screw the motherboard back in, and then put the cable in, just so you know. So if you're doing the installation of this, make sure that you pull that power supply cable out from those ports before you install the motherboard inside the case, because this could be an issue over there. or well, it is an issue. Make sure you do it in that order so you don't have to pull your motherboard out afterwards. And last of all, another little, it's not so much of an issue, or just like a heads up for you. If you expect your M.2 SSDs to run at like the maximum speed straight out of the box, if you just pop that in, that is not really true, because from default, the motherboard comes with the second and third and fourth PCIe slots. They come from the chipset, and it's PCIe 3.0 X2, which means that it's going to be capped at 1600 megabytes per second, even though our drive is like almost double or more than double the speed. So what I had to do is go to the BIOS and change the actual M.2, slots to come from the CPU rather from the chipset. And now we have the full speed of these SSD configuration as well. And that's all the bad sides I can think about this, but just little heads up, if you're planning this build, it's worth knowing these things. As always, if you're interested in this build and want to check out some of the other videos about this PC build, then check them out. I'll leave them in the description below, as well as, whoa, I just touched the fan. If you want to pick out any of those parts that I've used in this build, I'll leave the links all in the description below. Thanks very much, guys, for watching. Hit that like button. It actually makes a difference. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have anything to add, I'll meet you in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.